right, let's go ahead and continue with our lesson. We're going to be on lesson 37 today. So we're going to be talking about some inventions. Yesterday we were talking about all the immigrants that were coming in from Europe and from Asia and where they were coming. We talked about Ellis Island and what the U.S. government, the reason that they set that up is because they wanted to make sure that we were being, safe and there weren't people coming in that were going to hurt us. So today I want you to do something a little bit different. I want you to go ahead and turn to page 113 in your reader book and page 49 in your work text. Okay? Have both of those out and ready. Now we're going to be talking about 4 different people today. Alexander Graham Bell, which I'm sure you've probably heard his name before. Thomas Edison, which you've probably heard his name before. Jan Matzliger, which I don't know that I even pronounced that correctly. And Christopher Scholes. So those are the 4 people we're going to be talking about. And they invented lots of different things, and there's some pictures there on your work text of some things that they've invented. Now, what you need to do is, as I'm going to read these sections to you today, and as we read, like the first one we're going to read about on page 113 is Christopher Scholes. Well, you see at the bottom of page 113 what that is. That's called a typewriter. Now, that's how I learned how to type. You may not quite know what it is. You may call it a keyboard, but in the early days, it was called a typewriter. Actually, it may have been called something else, but nonetheless, so what you need to do is the instructions on the work text say you just have to use their initials. So if Alexander Graham Bell invented it, you put AGB beside the invention that he made. If it was Thomas Edison, you'll put a TE. If it was Jan Matzliger, you put a JM. And if it was Christopher Scholes, you'll put a CS. Okay? And then also on your work text, number 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10, you're going to put the letter of their name. So on both of they kind of go together, the top part and then the 6, 7, 8, 9, and 10 as we talk about them. So like number 6 says, teacher for the deaf in Boston, worker in an American shoe factory, gun company produced his invention, inventor of a machine that recorded the human voice and played it back, inventor of the QWERTY keyboard. Okay, so you're going to have those things in mind, and as we read and as you hear that, you go over there and put your answer there. Okay? All right. So I hope that makes sense. Sometimes I get things a little messy. All right, so let's look at page 113. We're going to be talking about Christopher Scholes, bright ideas, the typewriter. So while America welcomed new people to its shores, it also welcomed many new ideas. Several important inventions were created during the Gilded Age. In the early 1870s, a gun company began producing a new invention by Christopher Scholes. It was not a gun, it was the first modern typewriter. Scholes was a newspaper publisher. He knew how long it took a person to set type by hand on a printing press. He wanted to find a better way. Scholes worked to improve typing machines designed by others. He tried some different ways of arranging the letter keys, and he finally settled on the order that we use on our electronic devices today. The first 6 letters from the left to the right were QWERTY. We now call this arrangement the QWERTY keyboard because it's QWERTY. The first Scholes typewriters didn't sell well, but slowly the new idea caught on. Soon the typewriter would change the printing industry forever. All right, so you want to go ahead and put on your work text, he invented the typewriter. So way up there on number 3 in the corner where you see that old typewriter, you're going to put CS. Christopher Scholes did that. And then let's look down here on these little descriptions. Now, Christopher Scholes is letter D. Which one of these things, 6, 7, 8, 9, or 10, would he go on? Number 10. Christopher Scholes was he invented the QWERTY keyboard. So you'd put D on number 10. All right, good. Let's turn the page. Now let's talk a little bit about the telephone. Alexander Graham Bell was an immigrant from Scotland. He became a teacher for the deaf in Boston. Both his mother and his wife had problems with their hearing. Bell was interested in machines that sent messages and sounds. He had worked with the telegraph, a machine that sent messages in a code of dots and dashes, but he wanted to find a way to transmit or send the human voice over wires. Bell is given credit for inventing the first telephone. He was not the first to experiment with the telephone, but he was the first to get a patent for his invention. Bell's telephone did not transmit the voice very clearly. The person speaking had to shout to be heard at the other end of the line. But Bell and other inventors found ways to improve the telephone. By the mid-1880s, thousands of Americans had telephones in their homes or businesses. All right, so let's go ahead and put him on our page. So AGB, Alexander Graham Bell. He created the telephone. Now that's going to be number 2 up at the top. I know it's kind of hard to tell, but that is a telephone, an early telephone. So let's look at 6, 7, 8, and 9. We've already got, down here at the bottom, we've already got Christopher Sholes on number 10. So which one of these other things? It would be A. He was a teacher for the deaf in Boston, is what he was. All right, and that's still Christopher Sholes that we have up here. I'm not going to change the picture, but that's who that is. All right. Now let's look at the light bulb and the phonograph. Thomas Edison was a telegraph operator who loved to try new things. He was good at his telegraph work, but he was also interested in doing experiments. Sometimes he spent time on them while at work. This made some of his employers angry, and he lost several jobs. While he was still a young man, he quit his job to spend all his time inventing. Edison set up his own lab in Menlo Park, New Jersey. He invented many things. He improved the telegraph until it could send 4 messages at a time. He also found a way to improve Bell's telephone. Working on these 2 machines led Edison to a new idea. He invented a phonograph. The phonograph was the first machine to record the human voice and play it back. Edison also found a way to make a light bulb that burned longer and cost less than ever before. Electric lighting soon became more common than gas lighting. All right, so Thomas Edison is TE. Now, the 2 things he invented. The phonograph, that's number 1. In my day, we called that the record player. But in his day, we called it the phonograph. And when I used the record player, it didn't have that big bell thing on it. That's really old. Number 5 is another electric light bulb, a better electric light bulb that he invented. So you're going to put TE on number 1 and number 5. Thomas Edison invented both of those. Now let's look down here. We've already used number 6 and we used number 10. So Thomas Edison is B. So which one would he be? That would be number 9. Inventor of a machine that recorded the human voice and played it back. That would be B. All right. Oh, we skipped one, I see. On Christopher Sholes, his invention was used by a gun company. We forgot to put that. So on number 8, that's Christopher Sholes, so you'll put a letter D there. There were 2 for Christopher Sholes. All right, so the only ones we don't have are number 7, worker in an American shoe factory. The rest of them we've already got something on. Okay, so let's look at the shoe laster, Jan Matzliger. He came to the United States from South America. He found work in a shoe factory. At that time, shoes were very expensive. The upper part of a shoe had to be sewn to the sole by hand. This process was called lasting. The best workers could only last about 50 pairs of shoes a day. Matzliger wanted to make a lasting machine that would do the work faster. He watched the way the lasters did their work. Then he built a machine that copied the movement of their hands. And within a few years, his lasting machine could last 700 pairs of shoes a day. It greatly helped bring down the price of shoes. Nearly anyone could now afford to buy them. Look at the next page. This tells a little bit more about him. Jan Matzliger died shortly after inventing the shoe laster. He had been a faithful church attender. At his death, he left a large part of the money from his invention to his church. New inventions changed the way people lived. Often the changes made life better. Some people looked at the progress being made and gave praise to God. Other people believed that human minds could solve all the world's problems. They began to put their faith in science and invention instead of in God. Thomas Edison openly rejected the God of the Bible. Alexander Graham Bell was an agnostic, one who doesn't believe we can know if there's a God. These men did not recognize God as their creator, but without realizing it, they were ruling over his world as he told people to do. God used them to make important discoveries. Sadly, they did not give glory to the one who gave them their gifted minds. That's pretty sad. All right, so to finish our page, Jan Matzliger, so the JM goes on number 4. And C would be 7. So Jan Matzliger worked in the shoe factory. He was the shoe man. Now, what I'd like for you to do for your assignment is to answer the very last question, or it's a statement actually. Explain how inventions changed the way people lived. So I want you to answer that. It only takes about 1 sentence to answer it, okay? And I don't need to see that, but you do need to write that down, okay? That's all for today.